Everybody loves a big capital kill mail, but nobody really wants to be that big capital kill mail for obvious reasons. Well, last night we were on the giving end of that, and while it was a ton of fun and a blast to be in the fleet, I can probably say that pilot is not too happy even still. Today I want to talk about some basic tips and tactics that you can use to be able to go ahead and avoid the Damon Zell news of the week, because let's be honest, nobody wants to be there. Not against you, Damon Zell, just in general. I don't want to have my name on a kill mail. But anyway, so with that being said, let's dive in and talk about some ways that you can stay alive the next time somebody jumps in. So last night we were down in Scalding Pass, and we really wanted to have a little bit of just kind of a fun jaunt, see what we could catch. We weren't really hunting for capitals or expecting to find any, but when we did, we took advantage. And I think that the goal of this is not to call out the pilot that lost the capital. I don't want this to seem overly harsh, but I think that there were some great takeaways after watching this footage and really being part of this on the offensive side that I want you to be able to take away on the defensive side. So let's dive into the footage and take a look here. You can see that we're on the gate, and if I go ahead and start this, we're going to immediately jump in. We were waiting for our scout to get tackle. What happened is he actually burned in at 100, or warped in at 100, and then burned directly to the capital. Now, this particular capital pilot had 4 Raven strikers with him, and I'm not going to say that that was the wrong call, but in most cases, I think if you have multiple ships, there are some better uses than the long-range Raven meta that we're kind of seeing. Again, this isn't to call anybody out, but if this particular pilot had taken 2 of those ships and put them maybe a system or 2 out, he would have seen our fleet of 2025 coming, and I would not even be making this video. So you can see here, we're getting in, we've got the slasher has tackle, and so we're jumping into jumping to him so that we can actually start applying damage. Now again, this really kind of gets to the first piece of this, which is if you see somebody jump in, or if you see somebody start burning straight to you, don't even bother with the I'm going to try to kill them. Just jump out. No anom is worth losing a 40 bill ship. I promise you're not going to make that much with this anom. So if you are able to, you can use the bookmarks and kind of the immediate jump tab to be able to jump there. If you're pre-aligned, you can warp to the station, whatever you need to do. Now this brings me to the second thing, and that is going to be that, again, if you have multiple ships, I would put at least one of them as anti-tackle. And I don't know what necessarily was the case here, but looking at some of the kill mails, it was apparent that these ships looked like they were really more for long-range DPS, again, trying to get beyond that 250 mark and just continuing to put damage in. I personally think that that's not the best use of these ships. If these ships had been anti-tackle, if they had even maybe been a Scorpion with some medium rapids, something like that, maybe a Daredevil even, something to help take down and just delay that initial tackle, again, I think the Archon here would have been able to jump out, and it would have been able to survive. So that's really, I think, kind of the second big point, aside from, number one, just jump out whenever you can, make sure you have eyes, all that stuff. Be thinking about the ships that you're bringing with you, and if you're fleeting up with friends or anything like that don't have capitals, just have them get in an anti-tackle ship, anti-scepter, whatever it is, something to help you break that initial tackle. Now, you can see here that as we're starting to go through, the Ravens are dead or have warped off, and we're starting to defang this carrier. Basically just means that we're killing the fighters instead of going for the carrier itself. Now, the carrier here, again, it's clearly armor tank. It's Archon. That's the way they're meant to be. And so, again, as we're killing some of these fighters, we're focusing those down. We're trying to get those off grid as much as possible so that we can actually keep applying damage, get through the shields, and get into the armor where this ship is actually tanked. Now, you can see here, there's some time where this carrier pilot, is still in shield. He's still here. And I think this brings up the next point, and that is that if you are tackled or if something happens, immediately call for backup. Ping up Discord, ping an alliance, broadcast your fleet, do whatever you have to do to try to get more people on grid as quickly as possible. The reason that this is important, and it might seem, I don't want to have all my friends come and lose ships, they're basically providing extra hit points for the carrier itself. Just in the same way that these fighters are providing hit points so that we're not actually hitting the carrier right away. Take this time, use it, get people here, get people to help you. They can slow down the fighters, slow down the scepter, slow down the tackle, maybe just do something to help. I think my background just popped. But do something to just help and get more people on grid. Now you'll also notice here that I'm a terrible pilot, and there's a couple of places where I'm just drifting off. I was actually multi-boxing, so sorry. Anyways, so I'm finally back here. We're starting to hit the carrier. And again, I think at this point, if this person was not pinging Discord or doing whatever to get people to come help, that would be a huge thing. We had eyes on the Citadel. There was nobody coming. There was nobody forming up. You can see there wasn't anybody else warping in. Again, I don't know if this was because this person was just out here alone or if it was just a bad time of day, whatever it is. I don't know. But make sure that if you are tackled or if you do get into this situation, that you are getting people to help you as quickly as possible. Now, as this carrier is starting to go down, again, you can see we're still taking down the fighters, but we did kind of have a couple of times where we said, hey, we're starting to chew through the armor. Let's see how quickly we can get that down. Partially that's because we wanted to get the tank going so that the pilot was having to burn cap and stuff like that. And part of that was just because it seemed like it was going down fast. But if this pilot had been focusing his fighters a little bit differently, I think we would have been in really big trouble. Now, I'm going to pause here for just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the kill mail so that you guys can see that this damage on the carrier, 19% was from the lone battle cruiser that was on grid, and then we had a Hound that was doing almost 11% damage, was the next highest. These two alone, battle cruiser and a Hound, likely in bombard mode, contribute almost 30% damage. Think about that for a minute. If he had looked at the grid and said, okay, I know that the battle cruiser is a little far off, you can see it here, probably about 60 kilometers off. But if he had recognized that's the case, and even if he had sent the fighters out there, forced the battlecruiser to warp off for a little bit, or found that Hound and blown it up while it was in bombard mode, it would have had a little bit of a reprieve from some of that heavy hitting damage. Now, would it have saved it? I don't know, but it would have given it at least a little bit of time to be able to rep back up, or again call for more help, or get fighters back out, whatever it was. But it could have really helped get some of that damage off the grid. Likewise, if you look at where a lot of these kills were, they were all frigates, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if there's only one or two that have you tackled. But the minute that we had a Hector, the minute that we had 20 or 30 cruisers on here, this guy is not getting away just by killing some fighters. What he should have done is actually focused on killing the cruisers and killing the DPS dealing ships, because if he had even killed 4 or 5 others, we may not have been able to break his tank. So again, be thinking about where you're applying fighters, what fighters you have out, if he had used the light fighters or the small fighters, space superiority fighters, whatever you want to call them, and really focus on killing some of the cruisers rather than wasting time on the frigates that were basically speed tanking those fighters. I think he would have had a little bit better luck and may have actually been able to get away. Now, that brings me to the final point here, and unfortunately you can see that, that this pilot is going down. The problem here is that if we look at the kill mail, he really didn't have a whole lot of tank. And this is something that I have changed recently because I don't like the idea that I only have a glass cannon build. There's too many people out hunting caps. There's too many different ways that caps are being trapped or hot dropped or anything like that. Again, if 5 dreadnoughts hot drop on you, there's not a whole lot you can do regardless. But even for something like this, if you look, even having just maybe an extra hardener, an extra battery, an extra rep, something like that, putting a little bit more focus on the tank, I think might have saved him again, because if he's able to continue to rep through, get through this tank, buy himself a little bit of time from start to finish. I mean, this was less than 10 minutes of actual fighting, and that doesn't give your response fleet a whole lot of time. So I think that putting a little bit more tank, I know that you're going to lose some DPS. It's not as sexy as getting 150 million tick or whatever it is, but because of the combat commendations anyways, if you lose a little bit of DPS and you end up at 51 million instead of 70 million, and you have 3 ticks at that 51 million instead of, 2 ticks at 75 million, let's say, you're actually making more ISK because you're able to apply that combat commendation multiple times. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that you're dropping a little bit of DPS and you're actually putting more tank on there to give you some more survivability. Well, that's kind of my thoughts here. Again, I don't want to call this particular pilot out or say that, he was horribly wrong or shame him or anything like that. But I do think that there's some great takeaways that if you are starting out or if you're a new cap pilot, that you can absolutely do to make sure that you are staying safe. The last thing that I'll say here is if you are in a large alliance that has dedicated intel channels, please make sure to join them. This will tell you when fleets are coming up pipes, or if there are people who are doing log-offs, or if there are people logging in that might be looking to hot drop you, different things like that. There are a lot of different tools that you can use, and you can avoid this situation entirely by just paying attention to some of those intel channels. So as always, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. What other tips and tricks would you recommend for staying safe in a capital? And until next time, remember, kill marks last forever and fly safe. Have a good one, y'all.